Hi, everyone. Can everybody see and hear me? Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Raven. How are y'all doing today? I'm doing great. I've been excited for this as well as nervous. First time doing something like this. Hi, Jed. How are you doing? Thank you, Raven. Alrighty. So I'm trying out the poll feature. Feel free to use it. Feel free not to. Aw, thank you, Jed. Alrighty. So welcome to the Fiveable. Hang on. There we go. Have to keep reminding myself where the button is. So welcome to Fiveable. This is the College Board, AP, and Accommodations, a student's guide to College Board accommodation. As the slide says, I'm Madison. This next slide. So you can follow Fiveable at Think Fiveable on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So something we've been asked to do is share our story to Fiveable. I actually discovered Fiveable my sophomore year. As I'm sure y'all know about the crazy AP World History mega Kahoot it was that year. Yeah, I was part of the crowd that broke Kahoot multiple times. Does anybody else remember that, or is that just a I know it thing? Wow, it seems like okay, Raven, you totally know what I'm meaning then. Okay. Glad I'm not the only one who knows that in this stream. That was really fun. So, yeah, I just, after that, I've kind of kept an eye on Fiveable. Yeah, it was insane. It was definitely crazy, Elizabeth. It was actually really funny because, oh, hey, Madeline. So you also remember that. Yeah, I heard that this year it broke. I didn't participate this year. I'm not on world history anymore. Yeah. It was. Alrighty. So just my little intro. Yeah, I didn't participate this year either. So as I said, hi, I'm Madison. Yes, I can believe Dylan was on the leaderboard. So as I said, I'm Madison, and I have dysgraphia, which affects my spelling, my handwriting, just my writing in general, grammar, and fine motor skills. Basically a fun learning disability that affects, oh, good evening, Donald. So it affects my ability to communicate in written form is the quick and easy short of it. I have completed 2 full AP classes with the test. These included AP World History and AP Human Geography. And then I went through the first semester of AP Chemistry at my school. Unfortunately for me, it just wasn't going on at the time for me. I plan to re-enter that this upcoming year. However, I've also have done 4 credits of dual credit English, rhetoric, and composition, which is like junior AP, and then U.S. history, part 1 and 2. So obviously similar to APUSH. And then I have sat both SAT and ACT, and I just realized I probably should have mentioned I've sat PSAT 3 times now. So this session is designed to let y'all know about the accommodation system, what you should be doing during class, and what to expect during testing. Even if you have dysgraphia, please don't assume my accommodations are going to be your accommodations or anybody else's accommodations in the stream or anybody who is viewing this afterwards. So I'm going to check in on my poll. Okay, I see we have a kind of even spread. Do we have any educators? I'm curious. Now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, okay. So I just put in the educator section in the poll because, okay. Hi, Donald. I'm actually now really intrigued. I definitely kind of want to hear your thoughts as we go along about from the teacher side, what we might be not knowing as students. So yeah. So some basic information to go over for, all right, thank you, Donald. So some basic information, maybe we have people who may not be as familiar with the accommodations or may not personally need them or may have never really understood or even heard about accommodations. I've met people who I have to explain what a 504 plan is. So accommodations change the way somebody tests or interacts with the education materials, not as what being tested on or being taught. So there, I would say 3 main kind of categories. There is medical, which is being allowed to have medication during tests. This is actually a College Board accommodation. If you have medication that is not an EpiPen, I've been allowed rescue inhaler day of, but if you have something like anxiety medication or insulin for somebody who's diabetic, make sure you have that set up before accommodation, the accommodation deadline passes. So there is also academic, which I would consider being allowed to type essays during test, and then testing instructions, having the traditionally verbal and spoken instructions signed. So no 2 diagnoses are the same. So somebody may be classified as hard of hearing, deaf. However, one may have a different degree of hearing loss and experience with sign language. And so no people will need the same accommodation. So somebody might need 2 people who might need a sign, one might be deaf, one might be more, they classify themselves as hard of hearing. So just kind of remember that as we go along. That, and I will also be speaking mainly about also my experience when it comes to this, which is the learning disabled side. I don't have a medical accommodation. I don't really have what you might consider a visible disability such as blindness or deafness or being in a wheelchair. If you do, I will be briefly touching upon it, but it won't be something I necessarily have experience in, but I certainly don't mind talking about it. So to start this process, oh, I should probably mention before I get too further, there is a question. So if you do have a question, you go to your little ask a question, put it in. We'll have a Q&A time where I'll go over all these questions and we can chat about them, and so y'all can get questions answered. So just want to remind y'all that feel free to use the chat. It seems like we're going to have a small stream, so that's great. Definitely a little bit more personal. We can get a little more into certain things as y'all wish. So to start the process, ask somebody for help. Ask your AP teacher. Ask your counselor. Ask your AVID teacher if you have AVID, or your other college prep course. Ask somebody, your 504 coordinator. Really, if you can think of somebody who might have this answer, don't be afraid to ask. And the person could have various titles. So at my school, they're the testing coordinator. Your school might just throw them in, and that's the role of an IEP specialist or a 504 coordinator. It might just be the a person that gets everything AP situated and College Board situated. Like at my school, we have somebody who actually is like a teacher who works for AP testing. That's basically all she does. So when you go talk to whoever is going to be dealing with your accommodations, explain for College Board, explain clearly why the process needs to get started. This is the easiest way to communicate, I feel like, is being clear, and then state your diagnosis or concern. So for me, this was, I have dysgraphia, which is a learning disability, I know I will need to be able to type and possibly have extended time during essay writing. And ask for the parent permission form. So this is one reason I always say start early. At least talk to the person early, even if you don't know if you're going to want accommodations. Because if you get this parent permission form, get it signed off at least, and you decide closer to deadline, you do want to have accommodations during testing, you have everything signed. You're not waiting until the deadline to try to get all your parent to sign off of it. I had supportive parents. They signed off on it, and start early. Now, you don't have to be super early. I actually started so my freshman year, I started the week school started. I found out my person, got the parent form, turned it in. And I had a turnaround of 1 week from College Board saying I did have accommodations. So it's easier to also get notice and correct if something does happen. Let's say maybe a document was not faxed in a way the person can read that. That can happen. So it is definitely easier to correct if you aren't waiting until deadline. And it can take a while to get everything in place. Maybe for you, you have to go to this person here and that person there. You have to go talk to your doctor. You have to go talk to your 504 team or IEP team. And it can take a while to get all your documents together. So starting the process, so by the time deadline rolls around, if you're waiting till deadline, it has everything together. Otherwise, you do have that buffer. And the review process, according to the College Board's website, does not start until all documents are given. It does not start. So you can turn in things as you go along, I assume, from the SSD portal. Yeah, so thank you, Dawn. That is exactly why I say to friends that I know, if you need accommodations, it can't hurt to ask. But it is definitely not something you want to wait until the last minute. That is why I feel like I'm stressing it so much. Alrighty. So this is kind of the way I see successful, like getting a successful accommodation and successfully using it. So your documentation, psychoeducational testing. This is a word that I definitely had to look up while I was preparing these slides because I had never really seen it presented this way. But psychoeducational testing is things like if you are testing for dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. That's the one I was looking for. Possibly ADHD. I'm not sure about ADHD. Don't quote me on a lot of on that one. But all your more psychological with education testing, that documentation needs to be gathered. Your doctor evaluation. If you are blind, you're hard of hearing, you need a wheelchair, you need medication. Accommodation specific. So your 504 plan, your IEP plan, possibly a medication list from your doctor. Also observation depending on what you are needing, and currentness. Your documents need to be current. This is definitely something I know looking at college can be slightly frustrating, but there is a value because things do change. So maybe when you were younger, you did have severe asthma and you would have needed to take a medication, but now you're older, maybe it was more of childhood based. And so you're in a space that you don't need that same medications. So the same kind of goes for a lot of the documentation. Make sure it's current. I'm not saying try to retest for dyslexia. I've had my 504 coordinator say, because I've gone through dyslexia classes, that it would be possibly give a false negative, but still make sure when you are passing your documentation along, for example, your state standardized testing, if you have any, if you show that you've had accommodations for that, that would also be useful. Your team, because getting your accommodations does take a team. It takes you, the student, since it seems like we have a lot of students. yeah, it seems like we have a lot of students. So your SSD specialist, this is like the College Board official title. This is the person that is talking to College Board for you. Your teachers, both your AP and non-AP teachers. I feel like if I always have classes that may come as a struggle, even if they're not AP or be AP, but also they can provide additional documentation. So for example, my 504 plan actually has teacher reviews. So am I working hard in class? What accommodations am I using? Do we need to look at various things? So that as your documentation can be very valuable. Your doctors and education specialists, these are people who are making those documents, who are doing the testing and probably know a lot. And so they know kind of that professional language. You need them to support your documents and make it actually good documentation. So when you give it a college grant, and I don't mean to say pay them to try to help you cheat on the system, but more of a make sure that if you know that there is an issue, make sure that you talk to them, because if you're not communicating, documentation may be weaker than it should be. So do keep in contact with most of your team. And then obviously your parents. You need that parent permission slip signed, but also your parents are going to be supporting you all the way through if they're anything like mine. And even if you don't have parents who are super supportive, will basically do anything to at a drop of a hat, you still need them involved with your education. And then what I decided to name the right stuff, which is your selection of appropriate accommodations. So whether for you, this is typing your long essays or extended time to having Braille or large print, you have to select the right accommodations for them to be successful. You can't have an accommodation that makes no sense to what you need and does not work for you and expect it to work out. So unfortunately, not all accommodation stories are like mine, where I got less than a week turnaround. Obviously, Donald can speak about a student who has taken several months to get their accommodations aligned and settled. So you have to move forward once you're denied. And you need to understand the denial. There's multiple reasons a student might be denied. There could be a lack of documentation. Maybe if you'll give me a moment real quick. Sorry about that. Family quick question. So do understand your denial, lack of documentation, as I was saying. Maybe you submitted your 504 plan and the College Board did not see that as enough. Documentation may have not led to the accommodations you've been asking for. The example I could think of was if you're asking for extra time for somebody who needs a wheelchair accessibility room only, and there is also partial acceptance. Maybe you're aiming for double time for your testing, but you only got time and a half, which also I would like to say any extended time, for me, when I was going into it, would have been best. I was actually aiming for time and a half as like a hope, but then I ended up having double time. So there is the flip side that can happen. You get more than you were thinking. So if necessary, provide additional documentation or see what you need to do also is provide additional documentation or see what can be done. So if it does not meet the current standard, so maybe they think it's too old of documentation, see about explaining current impact or if needed to reevaluate. For example, medical is a little bit different where you could reevaluate somebody who is hard of hearing, maybe their hearing has changed. But if, for example, if you were in kindergarten diagnosed with dyslexia and it's still impacting you, you're still in dyslexic classes. I've met somebody who, and I call a friend who was identified early and is still in dyslexia services, in dyslexia classes. So it can happen. So maybe her documentation years-wise, it's old, but the needs are still there. And then also not waiting until deadline for this exact reason is important, because if you are denied accommodations and you actually really desperately need them, it is not helpful to be waiting until the last minute. So, success, hopefully for all. You got your accommodations. Now what? So they are valid on all your College Board exams, whether it's PSAT, SAT subject tests, the AP exams, any College Board exam. If the College Board is hosting it, your accommodations work. This SSD student ID number works for all of them. And if you have a College Board account, it seems like they even link it, which is great. I found that out during signing up for the SAT. So stay in touch with your SSD specialist or whatever other title they might have for testing information closer to time. I also just like saying hi to my person. She's actually really friendly. Keep your letter safe. You do not want to be day of your exam scrambling around a messy room trying to find it, as I did for my SAT. Not a fun experience. And also I couldn't get in touch with the College Board. I thought I could be denied. Luckily, it was fine because I was the only tester that she had. So I did find out about this little trick. If you do have your letter, to access it online, you log into your College Board account, go to the Big Future tab, go to the My Organizer within that, and then My Test. At the very top, it'll be SSD eligibility letter. Also, communicate with your teachers. I'm sure Donald might understand that communication amongst students to teachers about your accommodations can be helpful. I've definitely had to communicate with all my AP teachers so far. I had my human geo teacher not be, because I got it kind of at the start. I did inform her, but it's one of those, yeah, thank you, Donald, because it's one of those, and I'll go into this practice like you play type of thing. I borrowed from athletics type of thing. So, intermission! Or if you all watch Crash Course World of History, the Mongols, I know they're typically the exception, but it is, to me, really, this is really fun. So take this time to go get food and water, go to the restroom. This is going to be like a Q&A time. And then what we're doing next is the kind of what I call teachers and test day. Oh, okay, we don't have, do any of y'all in the audience have any questions? Please do. Please have questions. There's this. Thank you, Donald. Please don't be shy. This is meant to help y'all. Oh, okay. I mean, it's fine. Sharkak, I think. I mean, if y'all don't have any questions, we can continue, but I want to be sure everyone has a break, because I know, to me, this seems like it would be intensive information, hearing it for the first time as an incoming freshman, which I'm, according to my poll, so I do have a freshman, so totally understand it if y'all are like, oh my, what is this? Okay, guess. Is everyone good to continue? All right, teachers. Donald, would you mind coming up on screen with me? Or All right, so I'm going to start my slide while hopefully. Okay, Donald, thank you. Typing quickly works great for me too. So this is kind of my what to say to teachers guide based on what my experience is. It seems like Donald might be able to help me out here. So to me, it kind of depends on the time of the year. The beginning, which is when I typically would be informing teachers, is don't be afraid to just be upfront and state with your 504 IEP. This is coming from both adult credit, AP, and then just general student. Like I had 2 different senior level of sciences my junior year this past year. So I have just learned to be upfront and quick. Say, hi, my name is Madison. This also just comes from Avid. So state that you have a 504 if you need and for AP teachers, do state if you have. Okay. Yeah. I also am just one of those, hi. I mean, I don't do it in front of the class, but it's one of those out in the hall kind of things to me. Bad way, but that's just the way I've learned. So kind of in the middle of the year. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Donald. So do catch in the hall. You don't have to be saying this. And so towards the middle of the year, I had obviously for like my AP classes, this tends to be kind of going on where it needs to be like a reminder when you're looking more towards starting prep for the actual test is if you just got it, inform the change and ask help to learn about what you can be doing. So maybe for most of the year for half the year you haven't been typing your long essays, and then now you have been approved to type. So you want to practice like you are going to be closer to test day. It's just one of those things as a finals, midterms, I always have to be like, what's the plan? So that's always fun when you're like, this might be one of the few classes I need extra time in for sure on finals. And then prior to the test, ask for help in mocks. Donald, do you do mock AP exams? Okay, so my teachers always, I always communicate with for at least the essays part, and then practice like you play. If you are allowed time and a half, I would say use up to that for classroom and mock when possible. If you're allowed to type essays. So short answer questions, in my experience, were not counted to be typed. But if you do have a question about that, maybe you're able to type them and maybe I'm not, be sure to know. But also, please be reasonable. I'm sure Donald might be able to understand when I say no one really wants to do a mock for double time. I mean, it might be great for learning how to marathon, but my mom was an educator. I would say that she would have had no time for a double time. Okay. Yeah, different days and times. That would also make sense. We had one mock exam for my school, so do factor time if you're unable to figure out something like Donald was saying. So partnering with another teacher per student to attend both mock sessions into your predictions. So maybe, okay. I guess it depends if you do have the opportunity to have 2 mocks or you're able to attend both. I do recommend always going to your mocks for the practice, even if for some reason you may not be under super ideal conditions for your accommodations. This is still helpful for you to also know kind of what the test will look like, which I think definitely kind of relieves some testing stress that I tend to have. So factor into predictions. So like I got 3 when we did mock for AP World, had double time, did everything. I ended up getting a 5 in World, which I actually was really shocked in World History. So, and continue your plans as needed, using plans as needed. So your 504 and IEP plans don't go away just because you have College Board accommodations. It's just another thing to let College Board know that you have accommodations. So practice makes normal is kind of one of those other things I've taken a little bit from athletics. So my recommendation for extended time is use what you have for College Board. If you, for some reason, have double time in class based on IEP and 504 versus time and a half for College Board, especially for, I guess, your more like kind of College Board style tests, and learn it's okay to use. So I don't know if any of y'all students especially have ever had some nervousness about having an accommodation or having the 504 plan. So definitely communicate with your teachers. And as John said, everything has to be held in confidence. Nobody else is going to know unless you say something. And that might be you tell your friends, oh, hey, I have to keep working on this test. I can't hang out with you this afternoon. Or you can just say, I'm busy. So do talk to your teachers and make sure if you need them, the time you let them know. As far as typing, because I type, so don't cheat yourself with it. Because I wasn't really being watched, I was sent out my freshman year for world history for any time we did our practice writing. Because for me, it frustrates me when I see the red squiggle underline, especially for a word like because. Don't cheat yourself. Don't look how to spell it. Just go with it. Remember day of. Spelling basic words that you can find in your test document need to be spelled right. But Donald, you might be able to confirm for me, but from what I was taught, it isn't like they don't expect a perfect final draft. This is more like a polished rough draft. All right. So for your in-class typing, this would be kind of your notes. Use what you need. For me, typing my notes was what I needed. And this was really helpful for textbook notes that weren't really be taking in class, because at the time of me doing my 2 AP exams, I wasn't exactly comfortable taking notes in class typing. So confidence makes it work. So when you are turning in your typed notes, be confident. Everyone else had, for which part? Per 504 play. Well, we talk about it, and after the mock exams, they feel more comfortable. We also gave. Okay. Okay. I was about to say, Donald, I'm a little confused. So, I mean, that was just my recommendation to use more towards College Board, but obviously do follow your 504 IEP plan, whatever your plan is. And then it's okay to use a blend. So like I was saying, if you turn in textbook notes that are typed, because I know that typing notes can be either very quick or very slow. I never found it in between for me personally. So in class, it made more sense for me to handwrite them and go back and use more of Teacher Exchange, looking at the PowerPoints that were posted on Canvas, which is our learning software for my school. But for turning in notes, typing them up, the difference was also who was seeing it and what was the use. So for in class, just general accommodations, do not let anybody make you feel worthless, unable, or lying about whatever you have. Again, this goes back to the confidence issue for me when I was first having it. I don't know if any of y'all have ever experienced this, or yeah, it just, typing works better for me, but I was not ready in class to be typing when everyone else was handwriting. So to my students, especially, don't let anybody make you feel worthless, unable, or lying about what you have. What you have is real, even if they can't see it. You can easily be in an AP class and still need accommodations. It happens. Obviously the stream is here. Obviously I as a student am telling you that. Obviously you as a student who may have been through the system are saying that. And Donald and many teachers would say it is possible. It is possible to go through with a learning disability in an AP class, in a dual credit class, and beyond high school with a learning disability. And they are in place to help you learn. They level the playing field. That was something I felt like I never understood at the very beginning. Thank you, Donald. Thank you for that message. I feel a lot better with that. So just do keep that in mind. All right, test day. The one thing I wish I had totally known before I started this process. So to prepare for your test, again, I was taught by Abbott to go talk to my teachers before the test to try get any work I might miss. So this is where if you are a little bit more shy or you just want to kind of not be in a classroom full of students who might overhear something, be like, hey, I'm in AP testing and with extended time may not be in your class. This really applies if you have extended time or might be taking different lengths of breaks or may have unscheduled breaks, which are a thing, or untimed breaks. So anything that may throw your testing off as far as like standard timing. So this way, maybe in your afternoon classes, you grab any missing work you're going to be having. So you should find out for your testing experience, because your school probably is different than the way that they did for mine. Lunch, other meals, in case you have an afternoon exam that will go into the evening until like 6. And if you're anything like me, I typically eat at 4 or 5 o'clock my time zone. And snacks during breaks throughout or other arrangements. Are you going to be allowed to stop for maybe a bit longer and actually sit down and have a small meal? Are you going to be allowed to eat throughout? That was actually happened to me. Or are you only going to have breaks? I've had both where it would only be breaks and throughout the exam. For your typing or scribe, how much can you write? So I was told for typing however much I felt was needed by my SSD coordinator. And the reason I say how much can you write is for more of short answer question. And because I was used to my state standardized exam, which you could only write so much, and your scribe has to take it from your typing to the paper. That does not happen for College Board. If you type it, it is not transcribed by anybody else unless you have a scribe. So when I type it on the computer, it gets printed and attached from what I have been told. Yeah, as Donald said, it is not one of those things that an administrator will easily let happen, is go without lunch. That's why when it came to AP World, my second year, I was allowed to go throughout and just eat when I needed to. So if I got hungry between like breaks, I was allowed to eat because we didn't know. But my first year as when I did world geography, or human geography, geez, I'm mixing up titles today. I think it was one of those, we weren't really sure, so figured it out. Luckily, I did not need all my time, but it was definitely one of those, I was prepared to eat during breaks. Locations, they are great, especially if you are going to be needing to have something, for if you have a wheelchair, or if you do happen to have a service animal that is going to be with you test day for whatever reason. Where is the room? Are you going to be able to access it? Also, just generally, where is it? That might be a valuable question. And then the Scantron of due. Will you do it right before the test or before the test date? So Don might be able to confirm for me. For at least my school, there's this like AP student packet, and you fill it out, has a lot of information, and then you just get this little sticker and you put it on, super nice and easy, and then you fill out less information day of test. So you fill out like what test are you taking, what version. But are you going to, that's what I was saying. I didn't know if there was like some schools who may not do filling out all the long essay and Scantron of Doom. But if maybe your school doesn't do it, or maybe you're testing at a different school, maybe you're homeschooled, I don't know. I go to public school. So that Scantron would make me tired right before an AP exam. Not exactly something you want to do. Now, unfortunately for SAT and PSAT, they still make you fill out the Scantron of Doom. I call it of Doom because it is super long, and standardized testing for my school, where it is mandated by the state, it was super easy. They just do a little bit for you, and you don't have to fill out much of anything. All right, testing. Oh, it's going to be easier this year. Yes! No Scantron of Doom, hopefully. Or at least less of a Scantron of Doom. So I affectionately named this slide because if I always panic right before the test. I just have this natural gift. I can be totally calm and collected, and then I go right before testing. So follow your basic testing advice. Don't panic. This is probably one of the best advice that you can be given. Make sure you have had a breakfast or lunch or whatever your first meal of the day right before testing, and make sure you have water, etc. Various other testing advice. Sure, if you Google AP test device or standardized testing advice, you could probably find this. Location. I keep going after this location. I don't know. Teachers call it Scantron of torture for teachers. Wasted the whole day of lesson time. Yes, I totally agree. There is a point where it's like, seriously, this is ridiculous. This is way too much of a Scantron. Especially some of the questions they ask. It's like, would you like to give us your social security number? Especially as a ninth grade. I don't know my social security number. At least I didn't. I hardly knew it junior year either. You might want to make sure you have a vague idea what your social security number is when you're starting things like dual credit or college or scholarships. Important information. So location. For me, I'm that person that has to go to the room. If you tell me the room number, day of test, I'm going to be like, what? But if you tell me 2 or 3 days beforehand, that gives me a chance to be like, oh, that's close to this. I'm one of those people driving instructions. Don't give me straight names. Give me, okay, so if you pass by Walmart on your left and Target on your right, and I realize I did that wrong with my hands, you're good. And also know, it might just be you and the prompter hanging out for a good day. So just know that mentally when you're going in. I just have one that I think my record has been 2 other students and the prompter. And I called that a party out of a joke with some of my friends and classmates who know me well enough, because that was the actual room for PSAT. I've actually also been put in a strange twist. Somebody who had double time for only part of this time, and I had double time for the whole thing. We were put in the same room. Don't ask me why we were, but that's how we worked out. Another PSAT fun story. And then format. So will it look different depending on accommodations? Do you have large print or Braille? This is something you will probably know not right before the test, but this is a good thing to be sure you are aware of. If maybe you were last minute and you just kind of found out you had accommodations, you might want to double check if it's in a different format. For me, if it was all of a sudden I have somebody scribing, that would be a bit of a test day shock. Obviously I haven't, but that would be something I would be watching out for. And then how are you going to test? It will likely look different if you talk to your other non-accommodation friends. I don't know if you've ever proctored a test, Donald, but have you ever had it where, because from what I've heard, it's basically the gym. Okay, so you've proctored. So at my school, it's the gym. It's like a huge room and then just desk, rows of desks. and students stand in these rows and test in these rows. And it's very mechanical in nature in my mind. Oh, classrooms with rows at desk. Okay. Are you in a smaller school, Donald? I mean, my class size is like a little bit over 500. So we have a lot of testers. Is that per class or like the whole school? Okay, so you're about same size. I'm like 2,000, and we're the smallest school in my district. So for you who are maybe in a small school, you might have fewer students than I know. If you're in a bigger school, you might also just have classrooms of rows. I was put in this time. I've been put in kind of one of these like flex space rooms, as we call it. So basically it's a room with a whiteboard and projector, and it was like a conference table. I've also been thrown into a counselor's office conference table room. I have had these off the library side rooms that hold teacher reference books. Those are always interesting to see those titles. So you just might be kind of alone. And so swapping AP student stores would be more like, okay, so yeah, this person like 3 rows behind me was chewing gum. Versus, oh yeah, my test prompter was accidentally went over the time for the break. So different stories likely. And then if you're typing on the LAQ or DBQ or SAQ or all of it, my experience, it was LAQ and DBQ. Oh, okay. For a teacher, it's still like to only have 1 or 2 students. Very easy compared to 25. So apparently teachers like less students. I always found it great when I got up to 3 when it came to AP College Board testing. State exam, it's like a full room. So that's always fun. I definitely like it smaller because it's one of those, it's more like you're more likely to be able to be like, hey, do you mind turning down the AC a tad or turning it up, or just like little things that make, in my experience, a little bit better. Obviously, you still want to bring a sweatshirt just in case your monitor is like, no, I'm not changing the temperature. And then extended time. Take the time you need. I won't say I've made this mistake, but I have also made this mistake. Just kind of in general classes as well as with tests, but also AP Human. I wasn't comfortable yet AP testing extended time, but World I was, and I did, as far as like my score wise, do better on World, but also it's the difference between a 4 and a 5. So, I mean, but it could mean a huge difference to you. Alrighty, I forgot how some of my slides were short. So this is our end. So for anybody who has any final Q&A, or if Donald has any last minute suggestions from a teacher to student, I don't have anything last minute that I can think of, but I will tell you about this picture. So I found it on a teacher's Instagram because I was trying to look for a quote about accommodations, kind of to inspire y'all as students, and kind of remind, I feel like, all of us, because I always needed this type of reminder. And going into this next school year, yes, picture is honest truth. I always feel like I kind of need to remind myself of this, even as dual credit, even as AP, even just as a student. And for anybody who is maybe not, for whatever reason, be able to see it, it's accommodations don't lower the expectations for what kids learn. And so you are still expected to be an AP student and work hard. Accommodations are meant to help you reach the expectations, because if you are in multiple AP classes and you're trying to handwrite notes when typing works for you, that isn't a fair shot when writing works fine for most of your peers. Now typing levels it. So do we have any questions? All right, to any of my students who are still here, do y'all have any questions? Please don't be shy. If y'all have any questions, y'all want me to go back to a slide, I don't mind at all. In fact, how about, there we go. If you want more content of Fiveable, right now we are doing our Camp Fiveable streams. So they are, from what I can tell, and what I know, there is definitely a lot of student-hosted streams. There's Introduction to Arabic. There are some APISH ones I saw. Tomorrow, I think Fiveable has a stream going on. That's part of the camp series. There is college ones. If you go back in the archives, there is a high school advice for my freshmen, or really it's a great refresh for everyone. All right. Thank you, Jed. So for all of you who are watching the replay, good luck in your endeavors for wonderful blogs on all kind of things. Yes, the blogs. They are, from what I remember, really good. I just tend to, I've taken a break from Fiveable due to not being in an AP class, and the streams I didn't know if we're going to line up, but Fiveable's great. Fiveable is wonderful. So thank you, Donald, for tagging in for the teacher section. I'm actually really glad I had a teacher, and it wasn't just me speaking upon my own experience. But yeah, if it seems like everyone seems to be doing all right. So well, I'll see y'all, or I probably won't see y'all later, but if we ever do cross paths, I hope you've had a good time between now and crossing paths. And especially for my students, good luck, because I understand the struggle you're about to go through if this is your first AP class with accommodations. I understand. It's one of those things that this is an important stream. And I did this because I did not see anything like this before. And thank you, Donald, for kind of representing the teacher side and the educators. So as I said, go forth and prosper. Couldn't say better than that, Donald. Thank y'all all.